The sky over New York erupted in a cascade of prismatic light as the alien vessel descended through the atmosphere, its crystalline surface refracting sunlight into 1,000 dancing rainbows. David Chen, senior diplomat at the UN, gripped the podium tightly as he watched the massive ship settle above Central Park, its presence sending waves of panic through the gathered crowd. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to happen. They were supposed to be prepared, to have protocols in place. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm," he announced, his voice carrying across the hastily assembled press conference. "We have established initial communication with the vessel," and his words were cut short as a beam of pure light erupted from the ship's base, materializing into 5 figures that took his breath away. They were unmistakably female, their bodies tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to shimmer like mother of pearl. But it was their leader who commanded attention, nearly 7 feet tall, with flowing hair that appeared to be made of living starlight. "People of Earth," her voice resonated in their minds, bypassing the need for translation. "I am Queen Lyra of the Asterian Empire. We come seeking salvation," the crowd murmured as she glided forward, her movements too perfect to be human. "Our species faces extinction. Our genetic diversity has dwindled to critical levels. We require new DNA to survive, specifically human DNA." Her opalescent eyes scanned the crowd before landing on David. "And you shall be my chosen mate." David felt the blood drain from his face. This couldn't be happening. Of all the humans on Earth, she had to choose him, the one person who could never give her what she needed. "Your Majesty," he began, struggling to maintain diplomatic composure, "this is quite unexpected. Perhaps we should discuss this in a more private setting." Queen Lyra's lips curved into what might have been a smile. "Are you refusing me, little human? Do you understand that the fate of 2 worlds hangs in the balance?" Her attendants shifted menacingly, their hands hovering over crystalline weapons. David swallowed hard. "No, Your Majesty, I simply suggest we follow proper diplomatic protocols." The next few hours were a blur of rushed meetings and hastily arranged accommodations. The Asterians were given a diplomatic residence, and David found himself thrust into the role of primary liaison. As he sat across from Queen Lyra in a secure conference room, he couldn't help but marvel at her otherworldly beauty and curse the cruel irony of his situation. "Tell me, David Chen," Lyra purred, her voice like distant wind chimes, "do all humans tremble so delightfully in my presence?" David straightened his tie, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "With respect, Your Majesty, you did just announce your intention to marry me in front of the world's media. It's a lot to process." One of her attendants, a willowy creature with hair like spun silver, leaned forward. "My queen, perhaps the human requires demonstration of our compatibility." Lyra's eyes sparkled with amusement. "An excellent suggestion, Venna. David, would you care to join us for a traditional Asterian courtship ritual?" What followed was the most surreal evening of David's life. The Asterian residents had been transformed into a simulacrum of their homeworld, with floating lights that danced like fireflies and surfaces that shifted and flowed like liquid mercury. The ritual seemed to consist mainly of the aliens attempting to feed him various exotic delicacies while asking increasingly personal questions about human reproduction. "So your species requires only one partner for procreation?" Lyra asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "How terribly inefficient." David choked on something that tasted like electric butterflies. "We managed somehow," he wheezed, accepting a glass of shimmering liquid from an attendant. "Though I must admit, Your Majesty, I'm curious why you chose me specifically." Lyra's expression grew serious, the starlight in her hair dimming slightly. "Our scientists detected something unique in your genetic signature, David Chen. Something that could be the key to our survival." David's heart stopped. She couldn't know. It was impossible. "I'm not sure I understand," he said carefully. "Don't you?" Lyra rose, her form seeming to float rather than walk as she circled his chair. "We've been watching Earth for some time. We know about the experiments, the genetic modification some of your scientists have attempted." She leaned close, her scent like ozone and stardust. "We know you were part of those experiments." David closed his eyes, his secret threatening to burst free. How could he tell her that the very thing that made him unique also made him useless for her purposes? The genetic modifications hadn't enhanced him, they'd left him sterile. "Your Majesty," he began, but she pressed a finger to his lips, sending tingles through his entire body. "The truth?" David Chen, now her voice held steel beneath its musical quality. The other Asterians had gone still, their alien features unreadable. David took a deep breath. The experiments were a failure, he said quietly. I can't give you what you need. I can't father children with humans or Asterians. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, surprisingly, Lyra laughed, a sound like crystal bells in a summer breeze. Oh, David, she said, cupping his face in her hands, you think that's why we chose you? His confusion must have shown on his face because she continued, the modifications may have left you sterile, but they also made you something else, something unprecedented. She gestured, and one of her attendants activated a holographic display. David's DNA sequence floated in the air between them, but it was unlike any representation he'd seen before. Parts of it seemed to shift and change, pulsing with an inner light. The experiments didn't fail, Lyra explained, wonder in her voice. They succeeded beyond their creators' wildest dreams. Your DNA has become adaptive, capable of rewriting itself. And with it, we can save both our species. David stared at the floating display, his mind struggling to process the implications. But how? Lyra's smile held secrets of distant stars. My dear David, did you never wonder why you stopped aging 5 years ago? Why your wounds heal faster than they should? The sterility was merely a side effect of your body preparing for something greater. The next few days were a whirlwind of revelations. Earth's scientists worked alongside Asterian geneticists, unraveling the miracle that David's modified DNA represented. His genetic code wasn't just adaptive, it could potentially be used as a template to help both humans and Asterians evolve beyond their current limitations. It's not about breeding, Lyra explained to the UN Council, her presence commanding the entire chamber. It's about transformation. With David's DNA as a catalyst, we can guide our species' evolution, ensure our survival without the need for traditional reproduction. She turned to David, her eyes soft. Though, I must admit my desire to make you my consort has grown beyond mere scientific interest. David felt his face flush. Over the past days, he'd found himself increasingly drawn to the alien queen, her otherworldly nature matched by an intelligence and wit that challenged him at every turn. And what of Earth? He asked. What does this mean for humanity? A partnership, Lyra declared. Your world stands on the brink of its own evolutionary challenges. Climate change, disease, the limitations of your current forms, all can be addressed with this gift you unknowingly carry. She extended her hand to him. Together, we could guide both our species into a future beyond imagination. As David took her hand, feeling that familiar electric tingle of her touch, he couldn't help but laugh at the irony. You know, he said, when I was chosen for those experiments, they promised I'd help advance the human race. I don't think this is quite what they had in mind. Lyra pulled him close, her starlight hair enveloping them both in a cosmic dance of light. The universe has a strange sense of humor, my dear David. Now shall we begin our future? As their lips met, David felt a surge of energy course through him, and he knew that nothing in either of their worlds would ever be the same again. The ceremony that followed defied description, a fusion of Earth's diplomatic pomp and Asterian cosmic majesty. As David stood before representatives of both worlds, hand in hand with his alien queen, he marveled at how his greatest perceived flaw had become the key to an unprecedented future. Ready to change the universe? Lyra whispered as they prepared to board her ship for their first joint mission to the stars. David squeezed her hand, feeling the adaptive power in his genes resonating with her alien energy. With you. Always. As the ship lifted off, Earth shrank below them, but David knew this wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The first weeks of their partnership brought challenges none of them had anticipated. While David and Lyra worked to establish protocols for sharing his genetic gift, tensions on Earth reached a boiling point. Not everyone welcomed the idea of evolutionary transformation. They're calling it genetic colonization, Amanda Park, David's longtime friend and fellow diplomat, reported during their daily briefing. She pushed a tablet across the table, its screen filled with protest footage. Some religious groups are claiming this is the end of human purity. Others are demanding immediate access to the transformation process. David rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing down. Can't they understand this has to be done carefully? We're talking about rewriting the fundamental code of two species. Lyra placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her touch sending familiar tingles through his body. Fear of change is universal, my love. Even my people are not immune. She was right. Reports from the Asterian homeworld spoke of growing unrest. The noble houses, ancient bloodlines that had ruled for millennia, saw the coming changes as a threat to their power. Perhaps, Vena suggested during one tense meeting, a demonstration is in order. The idea took root quickly. Under controlled conditions, they would attempt the first voluntary human transformation. The question was, who would be the pioneer? I'll do it, Amanda volunteered, her voice steady despite the gravity of her offer. The world needs to see this isn't just about David and the Queen, it's about all of us. The transformation chamber looked like something out of a fever dream, crystalline structures pulsing with bioluminescent energy, Asterian tech seamlessly merged with human medical equipment. Amanda lay in the center, surrounded by a team of human alien scientists. David watched from an observation room, his hand clasped tightly in Lyra's. Beginning DNA catalyst insertion, Dr. Zhang announced, her voice steady as she manipulated the controls. A shimmer of energy surrounded Amanda's body, and David felt an answering resonance in his own modified genes. The room held its breath as minutes stretched into hours. When Amanda finally opened her eyes, they held the same subtle shimmer as the Asterians. Her skin had taken on a faint, pearlescent quality, but she was still unmistakably human. How do you feel? David asked through the intercom. Her laugh was like wind chimes, familiar yet somehow more. Like I can see the space between atoms, she replied. It's beautiful. The success of Amanda's transformation changed everything. Applications flooded in from around the world, scientists, diplomats, artists, all volunteering to be part of the next wave. But with success came new challenges. The first sign of trouble came from an unexpected quarter. My queen, Vena, burst into their private chambers, her usually composed features twisted with concern. We've intercepted communications from the noble houses. They're mobilizing their fleet. They're calling it a preservation initiative. Lyra's starlight hair dimmed with anger. They would rather see our species die than evolve. David felt his stomach drop. How long do we have? Vena's expression was grim. 3 Earth days at most. They're coming with enough firepower to sterilize half the planet. The implications hit him like a physical blow. The noble houses would rather destroy Earth than allow the transformation to spread. What followed was a desperate race against time. While Lyra coordinated with Earth's military forces, David worked with the scientific team to accelerate their research. If they could prove the transformations weren't just successful but necessary for both species' survival, perhaps they could prevent war. Look at this, Dr. Zhang pointed to a complex molecular diagram. The modified DNA isn't just changing people, it's adapting to environmental challenges. Amanda's body has already developed enhanced radiation resistance. Given time, these changes could help humanity survive climate change, space colonization. The discovery sparked an idea. Lyra, David called out during an emergency session with world leaders. What if we showed them the future? Her eyes widened as she caught his meaning. The Asterians possess technology to project probable timelines to show the consequences of choices yet unmade. They worked through the night, combining David's adaptive DNA with Asterian probability matrices. As the noble house's fleet approached Earth orbit, they prepared for one final gambit. Broadcasting now, Vena announced, her fingers dancing over crystalline controls. The projection reached every screen on Earth and every ship in the approaching fleet. It showed 2 futures, one where the transformation was stopped, leading to the eventual extinction of both species, and another where their combined evolution led to achievements beyond imagination, the colonization of distant galaxies, the solving of universal mysteries, the transcendence of current physical limitations. My fellow Asterians, Lyra's voice rang out across space. Look upon these futures and choose. Will you cling to what we were or dare to become what we could be? The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Then, one by one, the noble house's ships powered down their weapons. The aftermath brought changes no one could have predicted. The transformation process evolved, becoming more nuanced. Some chose subtle enhancements, while others embraced more dramatic changes. Earth's cities began to reflect the merger of human and Asterian aesthetics, crystalline spires rising alongside traditional architecture. David and Lyra found themselves at the center of it all, their unique partnership a symbol of what was possible. Did you ever imagine, she asked one evening as they watched the sun set from their crystalline tower, that failing to give me children would lead to giving both our species a new future? He pulled her close, marveling at how natural it felt now, the electric tingle of her touch, The way her starlight hair seemed to dance with joy. And I spent so long thinking I was broken, he admitted. Turns out I was just waiting for the right moment to evolve. As years passed, the changes spread across both worlds. The first generation of truly hybrid children was born not from traditional reproduction, but from the conscious choice of parents to merge their evolved DNA. These children grew up with abilities that would have seemed magical to previous generations. Amanda became Earth's first ambassador to the transformed Asturian homeworld, her unique perspective bridging the gap between old and new. The noble houses, those that chose to evolve, found new purpose as guardians of their combined heritage, preserving the best of both worlds while embracing change. "There's something I need to show you," Lyra said one day, leading David to their private observatory. The holographic display activated, showing a distant galaxy cluster. Our long-range sensors detected something unusual. Signs of other species facing similar evolutionary crossroads. David felt a familiar thrill of excitement. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Lyra's smile held the mystery of distant stars. "Our story was just the beginning, my love. There are others out there waiting to evolve. Shall we help them find their way?" As their ship prepared for its first journey to these distant worlds, David looked back at Earth, no longer just his home, but the birthplace of a new kind of existence. Lyra squeezed his hand, her thoughts mingling with his through their evolved connection. Together, they had transformed two worlds. Now, the entire universe awaited their touch. "Sir, we have a situation." Colonel Sarah Martinez strode into the command center, her cybernetic implants glowing faintly, one of the first military applications of the transformation technology. "We've detected unauthorized genetic tampering in the Singapore underground." David exchanged worried glances with Lyra. They'd feared this might happen: black market genetic modifications, people trying to replicate the transformation process without proper oversight. "How bad?" The colonel's expression was grim. "Bad. They're using unstable catalysts. We're seeing mutations, physical and psychological breakdowns." The underground evolutionaries Venezuela pulling up surveillance footage. They believe the official transformation program is too restrictive, too controlled. They're promising instant results, but the images showed twisted forms, people caught between human and something else, their bodies and minds warped by imperfect science. A new crisis demanded their attention. While David coordinated rescue efforts for the underground's victims, Lyra faced growing pressure from traditionalist Astarians who saw the dilution of their species as an abomination. The resistance had a name: the Pure Light Movement. "They've infiltrated the transformation clinics," Amanda reported during an emergency council meeting. Her shimmering skin now bore intricate patterns, a sign of her continued evolution. "They're sabotaging equipment, threatening patients. Some are even claiming the Queen has been corrupted by human influence." The situation came to a head when a prominent human religious leader, Reverend Thomas Kane, made a surprising announcement. "The Astarians aren't aliens at all," he declared to his millions of followers. "They're angels sent to uplift humanity to our divine form. The transformation is our rapture." This unexpected interpretation sparked a new wave of chaos. Religious pilgrims began flocking to transformation centers, while others denounced it as demonic deception. David found himself mediating between scientific truth and spiritual belief, trying to find a balance that would keep society from fracturing.